Review Advisory Board meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome. Traffic Review Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic items. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The Council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can discuss the item with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a common council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All items require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, November 22nd at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, December 13th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to this board for discussion and action. Please call the roll.
Oz?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Szynski?
Here.
Stefanik?
Here.
Becker?
Here. First item on this afternoon's agenda is approval of minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, additions, deletions? Seeing none, call the roll on approval of minutes.
Oz?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Stefanik?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Since there is no public in the room at the moment, if one has any objection, we'll move right on to new business. First item of new business, a request for no parking on Main Street West Side from 240 feet south of Murdock Avenue to 206 feet north of Murdock Avenue. Current condition being no parking west side from 145 feet south of Murdock Avenue to 206 feet north of Murdock Avenue. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
This is just with Main Street being reconstructed now, the bike lanes, they have the transition in this area, so we need to move the no parking. It's about 95 feet further south than what it currently was, just to match what the pavement markings are now, where the bike lanes start.
Is it already signed to this effect?
Yeah. Yep.
I thought.
Yep. We did. They had to do that when they did finish the road construction.
Makes sense, but I just want to make sure I
The
understand.
main reason I put it on here is we got to change the ordinance, number 1, but number 2, then in case anybody wanted to comment, it only affects one house, but.
Yeah, like I said, most of it's business where people wouldn't be parking at anywhere. There's off streets.
Yeah, there is one house there, so let's give them their chance if they wanted to say anything.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? None? Call the roll.
Oz?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Stefanik?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
Second item on the agenda is the request to delete 1-hour parking on Main Street West Side from Tennessee Avenue to 29 feet south of Tennessee Avenue. Current condition, 1-hour parking. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
All right, this is basically the same thing when we redid Main Street and our sign employees were reinstalling signs. They noticed this sign there and was wondering why this ordinance was, because it's all unrestricted parking other than this one area. So I looked back in the ordinances, and it looks like I have records going back to like 1992, so it must be prior to that. So I'm assuming maybe at one point there was a business there and they needed 1-hour parking or something, but there's really no reason for it anymore. So we thought it was best just to delete that ordinance to clean it up.
Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, call the roll.
Oz?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Szynski?
Aye.
Stefanik?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 5-0.
Which brings us to staff statements, the first being downtown parking policy update.
So we're currently talking through the downtown parking issue with the bid and the council. So I just wanted to give you kind of an update where we're at, because I know when Dan had mentioned it to me, and then it just got me thinking, well, I've never updated you guys yet, because we're still kind of in limbo. But just so you know what's going on, I'm sure that most of you are aware that a couple of years ago we did the downtown parking study, whether we had sufficient parking downtown or not. It was determined that we had sufficient supply, but we needed to manage it better. So we hired Walker Parking Consultants to do what I'll call phase 2, and then we asked them, okay, well, how can we better manage our downtown parking assets? So they came up with some recommendations, which were on the off-street lots, better signage, a little bit of, not much, but tweaking the permit parking a little bit, where we would have a residential permit program and then the regular permit program, and improve the signage to the parking lot so you know what the policies are in each lot. So there'd be a sign at entrance to each lot saying, you know, the hours of operation, which they're recommending 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and what the policies are in that lot. And then the second piece of the program was on-street, where they recommended it was 340 on-street paid parking stalls, which would be centered around Main Street. So it'd be Main Street and then the streets just off Main Street. So it would go to like Division and then Jefferson, and so basically within a couple blocks of downtown. So those were their kind of their main recommendations. The bid supported their recommendations. It went to council at the last council meeting. Well, it wasn't the last one, but about a month ago, when council decided that they were okay with everything except for the paid on-street parking, and they sent that back to the city manager to bring back one at a later date. So since then, we've met some more with the bid. It seems like some of their membership is fractured a little bit, and what their opinions are on this. So tomorrow night, the council's going to discuss it some more. The bid and council had a joint meeting last week that some of the council members made, where they discussed it. The bid expressed their positions and why they are in support of the paid on-street parking, or they were at that time. So that's kind of where it is currently. It's going to ultimately, council's going to have to decide if they want to go forward with the on-street paid parking or not. But they're not voting on it. It's just discussion item again tomorrow. But they've already voted and approved to implement the off-street policies, which the major part of it's just improved signage, but it also will change the enforcement of those lots from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then also change a little bit of permitting the lots, but that's more what the parking utility deals with. But I just kind of wanted to give you an update. That's where it currently stands. There's a lot of interest in it, and it's currently just a discussion.
The signage should be much more user-friendly, especially to somebody outside the community. I think one of the things the Walker study pointed out was, if you're not from the community, you don't really know where a lot of these parking lots are downtown. So the signage, I think, will help clear a lot of that up and be a more inviting downtown.
Yeah, and then I brought it up too, because when Dan was talking, he's like, well, we'd have to change some of the on-street, you know, if that did get approved. And I'm like, yeah, we're not there yet, but yeah, if that ever did come, that's currently how it's set up, is that the traffic review would approve or would, you know, do the ordinances for the on-street parking, and then parking utility does the off-street, which that's something too we might want to discuss in future meetings. I know at least Councilmember Palmieri has asked me before about, well, would it make sense to combine the parking utility and the traffic review board? And I said it kind of depends on where we go with all these recommendations. I mean, if we're going to kind of leave it as it is, maybe it would make sense, you know, because
well, I mean, at the very least, I think if it continues to move forward, there probably should be a joint meeting.
Right.
Supply and demand issue. If the parking lots are going to be more heavily promoted, for lack of a better term, the on-street parking is going to diminish, or vice versa. Right. So I mean, it's a give and a take. There's only so many cars
Yep.
that need to park, so we need to figure out the balance.
Right. So that, stay tuned. There'll be a discussion tomorrow night's council meeting. And then we'll kind of see where that goes. It sounds like it's kind of going down the road of what council approved, and then the on-street, might get tabled for a while.
Anyone else on that particular item?
That would be like the pay and display by the college then, or?
It'd be similar. What they recommended is license plate, pay by plate, basically. So it would be where you'd enter your license plate into the machine, or you could do it on an app, and the enforcement officers would have a license plate reader, so they just can go down and scans your license plate, says you're good or you're not. So it's similar. The benefit to that is you don't have to, put it in your window. It just automatically knows if you pay it or not based on your license plate. And the same thing with the residential permits would be, when you bought your permit, you would give them your license plate number, and that's what would enter you in the system.
All right, which brings us to Roundabout pedestrian safety update.
This I wanted to update you on as well, something I've been working on with a committee, and we had gotten some complaints from people that it was difficult for them to cross roundabouts. I think we've talked about that a little bit at previous meetings. So what we've currently done, just as initial phase, is you'll see that we have the signs by the 9th roundabout, the 9th and Kohler, and the Witzel. There's some from the Bike and Ped Federation, some terrace signs that say yield to pedestrians, and then the police put their signs on the medians. Additionally, as a kind of a test, we put the pedestrian flags at 9th and Kohler, just to kind of see how that would work. They've only been there now for maybe a few weeks, but that's something that we tried on Algoma Boulevard at Benton Arboretum. It seemed to work okay until we got lights there. And it's something that is pretty common practice throughout the country. It's a cost-effective way to help pedestrians cross or make themselves more visible by carrying a flag. And that's a two-stage crossing, so they get them, to the middle and then to the next. And then what we are talking about is doing a pedestrian safety month next year in conjunction with the police department. We ran out of time to do it this fall, but what they're going to do then is an education campaign on yield to pedestrians. So what it's probably going to look like is a week of education where we'll do some staged crossings and educate motorists that aren't yielding to pedestrians, and then they'll follow up with enforcement like a week after that. It's something that we've talked to the DOT about, and they've done it in Green Bay and De Pere, and it's been pretty successful. So during that pedestrian safety month leading up to it, we'll do a lot of promotion, and then we'll have the event.
Comments, questions? I actually do have one comment, Jim. I don't know if there's any future roundabouts in the works. I mean, there's been some talk about here and there. One of the things I've noticed, and DOT always touts the pedestrian safety aspect of a roundabout because of the setback crosswalks. And what I've noticed here in Oshkosh is that outgoing crosswalk, if you will, isn't as far back as it probably should be, and that's really a design issue because the queue distance between your opportunity to get out of the roundabout and that crosswalk isn't much bigger than a car length.
Right.
Which potentially causes a rear end situation if the person behind you isn't on top of their game.
Yep.
So, all I'm suggesting is, maybe that's a conversation we have to have at DOT.
Oh, yeah.
With the design team.
Yep.
Something you should take note of as well.
Yep.
Just the other day, I saw somebody almost get rear-ended in that situation. I mean, they did the right thing; they stopped for the pedestrian, but there's some black marks on Jackson Street.
Yep. Yeah, that is an issue, and that's something that we've talked to them about. The issue with we had the DOT at a Bike and Ped meeting where they talked about the Jackson and Murdock. That roundabout is tighter than some of the other ones. It met their design standards, but I guess I wasn't here at that time, but I guess due to some of the land acquisition issues, they didn't have enough land to make it bigger, like the one in, like the 9th and Witzel, you'll notice they're a little further back and a little bigger. You still can maybe argue that they're not back far enough, but there's more room there than there is at Jackson and Murdock, and that was, they knew that. That was part of the design criteria, when they installed them. And we put those, and Chris, my predecessor, had put those RRFBs out there to help, but it's tight. And that's the tightest one in Oshkosh. So that's something, yeah, definitely, if we do any more, that's something we definitely need to consider.
Anyone else? Which then brings us, I guess, to agenda items for the next meeting.
I was just gonna follow up on a couple of questions you had last time that I had answers that I've gotten since the last week or so. Dan asked for an update on the corridors into the city. We've gotten their existing conditions report back from the consultants that are working on that. So they did the report of the existing conditions. So what they'll do is they'll take that and then they're gonna make their recommendations from that. So that'll be forthcoming, so that's still in the works. And then Ross had asked about that Jackson Street from Hobbs to New York where there's not a marked crosswalk. I've had some initial discussions with the DOT about the New York intersection and starting to think a little bit about that. I need to do some more research and think some more about that because that intersection at Nevada is where, we have the offset and that's where that neighborhood group, they were advocating for a mid-block crossing there. I got to do a little more thinking. I'm concerned about doing that just because on Jackson Street there's so much traffic. We really want to direct them to New York where it's a controlled intersection and traffic actually stops. I'm almost thinking that might make it less safe if we put a crossing there just because of the amount of traffic that's coming and not having a traffic control signal there. So that's something that we'll probably have further discussions on, but those were my initial thoughts. And then the New York-Jackson intersection, we talked about that a little at the last meeting. That's kind of an ongoing discussion about if we could put left turn lanes there. And the DOT is still, they're hesitant, but I gave them some data and they're at least looking at it. So I've kind of asked them what their recommendations were. They asked for some crash diagrams, which I'd given them. And they're going to do some more thinking about it. So those are follow-up from the last meeting.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a question, and this might have been already addressed, but was there any update on what was going on with the entrance exit at Carl Traeger?
Yeah, where that's at is the Strand consultants, which did the initial study, back years ago. The school district hired them to update their study, basically. So, because it's been over 10 years since they've did the initial one. So right now, from what I understand, Strand is working on updating their traffic counts, updating the current situation, and then they're going to come back with the alternatives again and make their recommendation. So it's still in the process, because when we met, it's still a three-party deal because it's a county road, it's a county highway in the city, but the issue is caused by the school that's there. So we have to work together on it. The county we've talked about a roundabout. The county is hesitant to support the financial cost of a roundabout. So we really need to figure out what the best alternative is and then what the most cost-effective is that everyone can support. So that's where we have Strand doing the study to come back with, all right, well, what are the best alternatives and what are those costs? And then we're going to have to get the school district, the county, and the city all on board and with, what we agree to and then who's going to pay for it. So there's still discussions going on. We know that we couldn't budget for it in 2017 other than for the study they're going to do. So they're hoping that nothing would get implemented until we could get it in budgets for 2018.
Yeah, I know that there's signage there for, no left turn out of that parking lot, but no one follows that. And so I know, as now that, I have children that go there and I'm frequenting it more, I'm obviously in the trenches, so I do notice that it is quite a ordeal just getting out of there. So I didn't know what was going on with it, so.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and the issue is, those signs got put in a little before I started, which the problem is they're on private properties, so they're not enforceable. And, I mean, they might help, because you're suggesting people don't turn left, but you can't enforce it.
Yeah, the majority of the traffic unfortunately has to go left.
Right.
Anyway.
Right, because there's not much
Right.
the other direction.
Yeah, that's the issue, so, because if you go right, you gotta go down to Clairville and go all the way down 9th and around. And then there's also an issue on the school property, which they're talking about addressing with this too, because you have, where the parents drop off there, there's a lot, parents stop, get their kids out of the car, and that also causes traffic to back up, so we've given them, our engineers have given them some suggestions about maybe how they could redo the layout by the front where the drop-off is, by maybe moving where the handicap parking is and moving that, a little bit closer and doing a couple other things that might help with that queue. But it's ultimately, it's that intersection and everybody's got to turn left, and it's, there's the issue getting in and then there's the issue getting out too. All kind of bottlenecks. And it's, when the weather's nice, it's not quite as bad, but then obviously as the weather gets worse, everybody drops their kids off, and not as many people bike or walk as they used to, so it's becomes an issue.
Anyone else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Honest.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Sisitsky.
Aye.
Stefanik.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried.
Good evening.